Don't forget to subscribe to the Chrissy B Show, always aiming to show you the happier side of life. You can find us on YouTube, Facebook and Twitter.
Welcome back. I'm now in the self-development clinic with Chris Browne. What are we going to be talking about again?
We're going to talk
how
about
to solve
conflict in the workplace.
Yeah.
That's
Shall we
right.
answer this question from a viewer
Yeah,
first of all? This one's from Winsome. And he says, "Hi Chrissy, I had a scare the other day with a mini stroke and it really shook me up and made me look at my life, how I'm living and taking care of myself. But what I'm concerned about are my children and grandchildren. I don't feel like I've done enough to provide for them when I'm gone. Even though I don't think I'm going for now, the experience really shook me up. What would you do, Chrissy?" As you know, actually this section is what would you do, Chrissy? What would Chrissy do?
What would Chrissy do?
So basically I will give advice on what I would do if I were in your situation. But first of all, Winston, I'm really glad you're okay. And I know sort of scares like this really do make people evaluate their lives, how they're living, their relationships with other people. So it's not always a bad thing that happens. Sometimes it can transform a person's life and relationships. From what you're saying, I don't know if you're talking about providing for your family financially. I'm guessing it probably is, but from what you're saying, you're already a grandparent, so I don't think it's really for you. I know some parents and grandparents like to leave money and stuff to their kids, but as a grandparent, I don't think you really need to be that worried because your kids should be providing for themselves and they're going to be working. So I wouldn't overly concern yourself with that. Obviously provide whatever you can, but I think more importantly is being there for them, when they need to talk, when they have a question, because obviously you probably have a lot of experience. So I think that's a lot more valuable than the money side of things. So do whatever you can, obviously, but I would say be there for them emotionally speaking, and do everything you can while you're still here. And I think all grandparents and parents should do that as well. So I hope that's helped. And if anyone else has a question, I'd like to know what I would do if I were in your situation, you can email me on chris@chrissybshow.tv. Anything you'd like to add to that, Chris?
Do you know, that's really about value at the end of the day, and just as much as what you said, it's more value in the time you spend with a person, who you are, what you got to give. Those things go on longevity forever. You don't forget them. Money comes, goes.
Exactly.
You forget it. It's only temporary,
Yeah.
So don't worry so
much. And I think it teaches people to be more independent as well, because if you're dependent on my parents die, my grandparents die, then I'm going to get all this money or whatever. It's like you sit around doing nothing. You need to make your own life.
Exactly.
Not depend. I know sometimes it's some certain traditions and cultures as well, but fight for your life.
Helps you to grow.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day,
Yeah.
right? Dave, funny enough talking about, and we're seeing what your guests talking about earlier on as well. It really
powerful stuff, right?
Oh, that was amazing.
Yeah.
It was really amazing. And talking about it, he was talking about gangs, groups, and different areas and crime. Now, on top of that, what we're talking about today is conflict. Conflict different though in the workplace instead, but you're going to see where certain things actually fall in line. Because
we don't have the physical guns and knives, but
we've got physical guns and knives, but
got the
it's
daggers,
just as bad.
Daggers out.
Thank you very much. You'll see where everything else comes into it. Now, with conflict, we're talking about resolutions as well. We like to know how to actually sort this out, but sometimes we've got to work out what is actually a conflict, because sometimes there are conflicts that goes on within us as individuals, right? Now, I'm going to touch on this, and it's something which Stephen Covey actually brought about, which is really good, and I'd advise everybody to have a read, in that sense. But intrapersonal conflict in that sort of way, right? Interpersonal conflict. Now, what we're talking about here is different levels of conflict. We got interpersonal, we got interpersonal, and we got intergroup conflict as well. Now, with intrapersonal, we're actually talking about conflicts within the individual themselves. Sometimes you get situations, here's a better example, which is used. Romeo and Juliet, right? Two families, forbid them to be together, right? Okay, so we've got two families who forbid them to be together.
Yeah.
Their inter-conflict there is they actually want to be together, right? So they've got to actually make decisions whether loyal to the family or themselves and run away and everything, as we know the story at the end of the day. Yeah. But it had to do with their own conflict inside as well at the same time. So that's on another level. Now, when you think about it and take that in the workplace, sometimes our values, when we do things, are they with integrity to what we actually believe as well within the workplace?
So say, for example, your manager asks you to lie about something and you don't like to lie, and then you've got that
interpersonal conflicts going on. So you've got to work out who you are with that straight away. Now let's talk about the other one in the workplace, interpersonal. Interpersonal conflicts, bosses. Has a way of doing something, Similar, very much similar, but it's not the way you normally do it. There's a new plan in the company, they're doing it this way, not the way you normally do it. We're going to have that happening there straight away. So we've got to learn how to work these things out. And let's talk about the last one, which you mentioned as well, the intergroup personal one. Now, with that, you've got groups. And in workplaces, you do have groups, just like gangs. You've got that, right? Now, when I say that, I'm talking about cliques.
Right.
Yeah, it's a different kind of gang in a workplace. And we all say, well, they're not part of that clique, and no, it's not, and this, and yeah, everybody's going along. But it is a clique at the end of the day, and it is a gang. And for somebody else coming into there, that goes on. So there's another kind of conflict going on in the workplace. Unions, workplace, rights. These are exactly the same thing. So we kind of see the parallel at the end of the day, but it's the way the human actually interacts on that level. So what we've got to look at is, what do we do about it? Right.
Yeah.
Now, think about this one. A lot of the problems that we actually face with someone, sometimes in the workplace we say, I don't like that person because of this, or because they're like this, and because it's got nothing to do with that. You've got to be able to get to the point of actually separating the issue from the actual person. The problem for the person. The person might not be all that demonized that you put behind them. It's your perspective where you've seen them at the end of the day, but it's about the issue instead. What is actually going on? What is the actual problem? So many a times we actually look beyond that and we just think, well, I like this glass to be here, and we always put this glass that place instead, but this is it. And why should you always do that every time? And no. And it starts another thing. We go about the group, the clique.
It doesn't work when you sort of take things personally at work. So, for example, your manager has to correct your work and says, I don't like the way you're doing this, you need to do it that way.
Right.
If you take that person and think, my boss doesn't like me, it's probably got nothing to do with you as a person. It's just they don't like maybe the way you're doing your work. So if you're going to get offended every time, you're probably going to miss out on promotions. You're going to be a difficult person to deal with.
Exactly.
It's like people will be treading on eggshells. And I would, as a manager, I would never promote someone like that because I can't work with them. I need someone that's flexible, that's going to be open to new ideas and things.
And that's why you have to look at yourself and see, well, why do you always see it from that perspective at the end of the day? Or why do you view someone that way? That has got something to do with the way you view things overall.
And the way you see yourself, very insecure.
Exactly, very much so. So here's another one. You've got to actually look at the person as well and try their shoes out. Put yourself in that person's position and see, why have they said what they said? Why are they doing what they're doing? Because it might not be what you actually think in any kind of way. And you might find a better way of resolving it as well, instead of looking at a person from those views just as much as he said, right? So try somebody else's shoes out. Put yourself in their position, from their perspective, their view, then get to the point of actually talking about it, because then you've got both sides instead, right? There's always two sides at the end of the day, right? Now, taking that further, last one, facts. And all the little bit of increments that go in between. Before you actually get into it with anyone, you've got to work out, what are the facts behind this? What is the reason behind this? Gather that together, get that information, then actually sit down and have that meeting, have that talk in the workplace and realise, what is it exactly? So we've got to get to that point of resolution, conflict resolution. We could talk about the whole word of conflict resolution in a bigger way, but let's talk about it in the workplace as well. A lot of that actually goes on. So let's get to the point of solving that.
A lot of it doesn't get solved because I think it's uncomfortable sometimes to sit down and talk with someone that you're disagreeing with and, to solve these kind of problems, but it has to be done. I think that's why a lot of people avoid it and it just makes it worse.
It grows and it gets worse.
And of course there's the other side of things. And you do, in rare cases, you do get nightmare bosses that really are horrible and that really mistreat their workers, in which case, no matter how much you try and sit down and you try to solve things with them, it's not gonna happen until that person's found out and removed, or you end up leaving. But wherever you can, obviously, to definitely sit down and
it's better to sit down and resolve it and find out why. If you can't, and that person is like that, you've got to think about yourself. Are you in the right place? Do you need to be somewhere where you are going to be happy? Or are you going to be pushed out by that? That's a personal conflict again.
But there's always a way.
There is always a way.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
we go for that.
Thank you so much, Chris.
Pleasure.
All right, so we have reached the end of today's program. If you want more information about any of our guests on today's show, you can visit the website chrissybshow.tv. And also, if you'd like anything else, if you have a question you'd like to ask me, don't forget chris@chrissybshow.tv. So, and just to leave you with this, obviously we had some really inspirational guests on today. And if people tell you that you can never change, they are definitely wrong. And if you think you can never change, you're also wrong. All it takes, is just that self-belief and that wanting to change. And with the right help and guidance, your life can be completely different. The power is in your hands. See you again next time. Bye-bye for now. Now, have you ever thought of a complete career change? I'll be speaking with Claire Barrett, who went from a career in the police force to running her own silly woman. Not you, me. Let me start again. Sorry. Her own bag design business. Sorry, I wasn't calling you silly, is me? Sorry.